Good morning, Brew Daily Show. I'm Neal Freyman.
And I'm Toby Howell.
Today, will a tariff rollback finally bring down grocery store prices?
Then movie stars just aren't putting butts in seats anymore. It's Monday, November 17th. Let's ride.
It is great to be back, though I missed hanging out with you all very much. Toby, thanks to you and our guest host for holding down the fort last week. And I gotta say, that mullet is growing in very nicely. I realized you guys didn't talk about this, so I wanted to mention something that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman called a small but happy win. ChatGPT's answers will no longer be littered with M dashes if you tell it not to. In the last few months, people have recognized that ChatGPT uses an unusual amount of long M dashes when it answers your questions, so it got pretty hard to disguise AI writing as anything else. But Thursday night, Altman wrote that if you tell ChatGPT not to use M dashes in custom instructions, it finally does what it's supposed to do.
This has been a long time coming for me personally, because the M dash holds a special place in my heart, because I learned about them when I got hired to write for Morning Brew. I was reading some of my college writing recently, which don't do that, but my dash game frankly stunk. Then it became awesome once I was introduced to the M dash. I think it was by you yourself. I did get a little addicted to it, as a lot of people have. It is a little bit of a divisive, punctuation mark into the writing community, because some call it a crutch, some say that it's just lazy writing. But then the M dash was just corrupted for all of us when AI became so ubiquitous with using this, which helped wean people off. But hopefully now it can be reclaimed by humanity. So I'm pretty excited about this.
All right, and now a word from our sponsor, U.S. Bank. This holiday shopping season will test your budget as much as you're claimed to be the family's best gift curator. Give yourself and your wallet a break by paying later with the U.S. Bank Split Card.
Introducing the U.S. Bank Split World MasterCard, a new type of card that lets you pay later on every purchase. With the Split Card, all purchases are automatically divided into 3 payments and placed into a payment plan to be paid back over 3 months.
And if you're looking for additional flexibility, any purchase over $100 can be extended to 6 or 12 months with equal monthly payments for a low monthly fee.
Whether it's buying a fancy new tech gadget for your loved one or treating yourself to a new sofa, pay later on every purchase with the U.S. Bank Split Card.
Learn more at usbank.com/splitcard. That's usbank.com/splitcard. President Trump sought to address rising grocery prices with an order on Friday that reduces tariffs on hundreds of goods people buy for their everyday food needs, including tomatoes, coffee, nuts, beef, coffee, bananas, and avocados. After Republicans got drubbed in elections 2 weeks ago, the message was sent loud and clear: Americans are finding basic goods unaffordable and they want prices to stop going up. And the grocery store is Exhibit A. Average retail prices for ground beef are up 11.5% over last year, and bananas have jumped 8.6%. Coffee, as we caffeine addicts know, is more expensive than ever, with ground roast coffee prices spiking 40% from last September. All of those price increases are much higher than the total rate of inflation, which stands at about 3% annually. Were tariffs a factor? The White House seems to acknowledge as much, with the implication that reducing tariffs will also reduce prices. Erica York at the Tax Foundation said, by admitting that lowering tariffs will lower prices for U.S. consumers, the Trump administration is acknowledging what economists have pointed out all along: tariffs raise prices. Across the board, 74% of U.S. food imports face tariffs as of August. The tariff reversal is also a concession that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to tariff goods that almost never come with a Made in the USA sticker. The U.S. hardly grows any coffee or bananas, for example, so there's no domestic industry to protect, which is a primary goal of tariffs, to protect your local producers. Toby, this means I can finally make my famous fruit salad without maxing out a credit card.
The banana and the coffee, these food items were always held up as a symbol of why this tariff logic never made sense, because you're right. We literally do not have the conditions to grow these things here, so why are we tariffing them? It just makes things more expensive for consumers. So maybe this is a tacit admission that maybe this widespread tariff plan was not necessarily the best way. It needed to be a little bit more focused. It did seem like an admission, too, that affordability is becoming, the de facto narrative defining the rest of 2025, especially after these elections where a lot of Democrats ran on a message of affordability. So Trump has been trying to reframe how people are looking at tariffs, especially trying to rally support for them. We talked about offering the $2,000 tariff rebate checks to Americans. Now this comes on the heels of that. So it's clear that he is looking at what just happened in these elections and saying it does look like affordability is going to be the main topic here. So let's try to put out a message showing that we hear you and we are going to try to make these food items more affordable.
So the question is, are these food items going to be more affordable? There's this famous saying when it comes to inflation that prices take the elevator up and the stairs down. Now grocers have set the expectation that you're going to pay a lot for bananas or coffee or anything in their aisles, so they don't have a lot of incentive to lower prices that quickly. So economists generally are saying that if prices do come down, it won't be like now that there's lower tariffs on these goods. It's not like you're going to go to the grocery store this morning and you're going to see coffee be half the price it is. And there's still a lot of tariffs on goods. Just look at Brazil. There was a 50% tariff on Brazilian imports. We get a third of our coffee from Brazil. The tariff rollback that was announced on Friday just reduces those by 10%. So there's still 40% tariffs on coffee and a bunch of the other agriculture products that we import from Brazil. So if you are going to see price increases, it will take a lot of time. Decreases, it will take a lot of time, and they probably won't be substantial. I guess the conclusion here is that prices won't be going up because of tariffs.
And the other conclusion, too, is that the big albatross that is still percolating in the background is the Supreme Court threat to Trump's entire tariff agenda, where the Supreme Court they've heard arguments about Trump's use of emergency powers to impose these widespread tariffs. If that goes against Trump, we could see some of these tariff revenue refunded to people. So there's a lot kind of going on in the background right now, but you do see a gradual dismantling of this broad-based approach to tariffing countries, especially when it comes to things like bananas that, you can't necessarily grow in Iowa. You can't grow coffee here as well. So good to see, if you are someone who is a caffeine addict like me and yourself, that these prices may be coming down slowly but surely. For a long time, Hollywood has been a star-driven business. Put a movie star in your film, and that star puts butts in seats. But of late, there's been a decoupling of that relationship. After The Hunt, starring Julia Roberts, cost $70 million to make, it grossed just $3.3 million at the box office in a month. Christie, a biopic featuring Sydney Sweeney, brought in just $1.3 million in its first weekend in the US, one of the worst openings for a new release ever across 2,000 screens. And Glenn Powell in The Running Man made just $28 million against a reported budget of $110 million. The list goes on. Movies featuring Jennifer Lawrence, Robert Pattinson, Margot Robbie, The Rock, and more have played to mostly empty theaters. None of the 25 dramas or comedies in theaters released in the past 3 months have become a hit, despite featuring massive stars garnering critical acclaim and relatively large marketing pushes. October 2025 brought in just $445 million total at the box office, the lowest October ever recorded outside the pandemic, and less than half the adjusted October 2019 total of $1 billion. Neal, everyone is pointing fingers at each other. Studios are looking at audiences and saying, you want originality, but only show up for sequels. Fingers are being pointed at the media for reporting the dire box office reports, and prices are up too, with many saying that the theater experience is worse overall. Whatever the reason, star power alone isn't enough to get people to turn out anymore.
So people have been declaring movie theaters dead for the better part of 20 years. When Netflix first came on the scene, everyone could just watch anything at home. I remember every expert and analyst went up and said, all right, movie theaters are dead. And then when COVID came and movie theaters were closed, everyone declared movie theaters were gone. And still after the pandemic, they started to slowly inch back. This time, though, feels a little bit different. Maybe you have a bunch of people who have followed the industry very closely over the past multiple decades saying, like, something's going on here, doesn't look good at all. Matt Belloni, who's probably the most closely watched Hollywood journalist out there, said, it's the fall of Rome. It's the real-time disintegration of a 100-year-old industry. Owen Gleiberman, who's the chief film critic for Variety, said it has seriously begun to look like the bottom is falling out. And then Kevin Goetz, who wrote a new book, How to Score in Hollywood, said it's not a phase, it's an evolution you can't reverse. So it sure seems like there is some sort of secular decline here in movie theaters because something is going wrong when all of these typically bankable stars can't bring any butts in seats.
And the issue is that these movies are relatively well received by audiences, or at least by critics. I mean, Die My Love, which features Jennifer Lawrence, critics loved that movie. It opened to $2.8 million at the box office. The Springsteen biopic also had relatively positive reviews, brought in just $21 million. And then Good Fortune, which is a Keanu Reeves comedy, was well reviewed. It had a budget of $30 million, only earned about $16 $16 million. So it's just the math isn't mathing right now, which begs the question, why do studios keep making these movies? One, there's awards season eligibility. If you want to have, Oscar fodder, you need to have a theatrical run to be eligible for these Best Picture awards. And then two, there is a longer lifetime for these movies as well. I mean, Die My Love was purchased by a streaming service, Mubi, for $24 million, the rights to that. So technically they could have a second life on these streaming platforms. But also audiences technically are saying, we want original films. We don't just want another, Predator movie. And yet, if you look at how Predator's 9th installment did at the box office, it actually crushed. So maybe we're not necessarily voting with our wallets the way we are saying with our mouths.
Yeah, well, movies are doing actually well, and there's no surprise here. It is franchises over the summer, which I will add was the least attended summer box office since 1981. 26 movies collected at least $20 million at the North American box office. 20 of them were franchises of some sort. Okay, let's move on to our winners of the weekend, the segment where Toby and I pick two things that are fully meal prepped with a hearty soup. I won the pre-show Tush Push, so I get to go first. And my winner is Charlie Javice, because she defrauded JPMorgan once, and now, according to the bank, she's doing it again, and there seems to be nothing Jamie Dimon can do about it. The largest bank in the U.S. is accusing Javice of racking up exorbitant legal bills, which they are on the hook for, that are about to be as expensive for JPMorgan as the original fraud itself. On Friday, lawyers for the bank said that Javice has spent money on bougie meals, luxury hotel upgrades, and the moisturizer cellulite butter, then sent the receipts to JPMorgan. In total, JPMorgan says it's paid over $142 million in legal fees for Javice and her co-conspirators so far, nearly as much as the $175 million they were duped out of in the first place. Here's the quick backstory if you forgot about this saga. Back in 2021, JPMorgan bought Javice's fintech startup Frank for $175 million, but soon had buyer's remorse after learning that most of Frank's user base had been made up. The bank sued Javice, and earlier this year, she and her colleague Olivier Amar were convicted of fraud by a jury, and Javice was sentenced to 7 years in jail. Unfortunately for JPMorgan, a clause in the acquisition agreement makes them responsible for Javice and Amar's legal fees, and as this bill has soared, they've been desperately trying to back out of the arrangement, saying the sum is, quote, an unprecedented and shocking amount that has exceeded any semblance of reasonableness. Indeed, it appears that Javice's more than $60 million in fees alone is tens of millions more than Elizabeth Holmes spent on her defense. Toby, what would you buy if Jamie Dimon was paying your bills, and why is it also cellulite butter?
I mean, I would probably order a little room service to go. The cellulite butter is obviously going on the bill. The issue for JPMorgan is technically they have the right to recoup these fees if it proves that they have been defrauded, but it looks like they're never going to get most of this money back because the amounts that Javice and Amar owe the bank and the federal government are just well in excess of their actual existing wealth. So it's kind of almost a Sam Bankman-Fried moment where you don't have the assets to pay back the money that you allegedly defrauded them out of. Also, she went for the absolute top lawyers here, the who's who of a legal defense team. She was initially defended by Alex Spiro, who has represented Elon Musk, Eric Adams. Then she went for celebrity attorneys, Jose Baez and Ronald Sullivan, who defended Harvey Weinstein. And then now she's appealing her criminal conviction, and she hired the same appeals attorney that represented Sam Bankman-Fried. So these billable hours are just shocking.
Well, why not if someone else is paying your bills?
Exactly. And looking through these documents, you're seeing that these lawyers are suddenly working 24-hour days. Sometimes one was charging over $2,000 an hour. So it is just this crazy world that JPMorgan is looking through the receipts and going, how is this even humanly possible? They're saying it's not humanly possible.
We should have gone to law school. Now, I want to give Javice a moment to respond. Her spokesperson said, Charlie says she has nothing to do with that, and it's a ridiculous allegation talking about the cellulite butter, the hotel upgrades, the meals, and the spokesperson added that Javice, when she was a JPMorgan employee, because they did acquire her startup, that she always followed all of the policies. The spokesperson said, as an employee, she did purchase ice cream and other items in accordance with JPMorgan's code of conduct. She never sought reimbursement for anything that wasn't expressly permitted under the guidelines she was given. Any suggestion otherwise is simply incorrect.
She's just like me, for real. She ordered ice cream as well, so she's got a sweet tooth. I don't blame her for that. All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with my winner of the weekend. My winner of the weekend, Mai Tais, because a whole lot more of them are about to be sipped by big name CEOs easing into retirement. It happened slowly and then all at once, but corporate boardrooms are changing in front of our eyes. On Friday, longtime Walmart boss Doug McMillon said he'll step aside early next year. Over at Apple, the board is speeding up its search for a successor, according to reports, meaning Tim Cook could hand over the keys as soon as 2026. And Bob Iger has been openly talking about bowing out of Disney early next year, too. What a run it's been for these three-star CEOs. Under Cook, Apple stock has nearly 20x since he took the helm in 2011. Walmart shares have quadrupled since McMillon took over in 2014, and Disney is now 5 times the size since Iger first took the reins, starting way back in 2005. Neal, corporate America is on a first-name basis with these guys, talking about another camera improvement to an iPhone, an e-com push, or a media brouhaha with no mentions of Tim, Doug, or Bob is going to feel a little weird. But the world moved on from MJ, Tim, and Kobe, and we got LeBron, KD, and Steph. Now it's time to see who steps into their shoes.
Yeah, as Axios wrote and put into context, these leaders really do matter globally. They've been at the helm of these companies for over a decade, and each of these companies is really important to the broader global economy. About 1 in every 5 people around the world uses an iPhone. About 1 in every 50 people on Earth visits a Disney property each year. And then when it comes to Walmart, it's the world's largest retailer, has the most revenue, and has the most employees of any company in the world. So there does seem to be a lot of corporate upheaval at these places, but they all say they have very sound succession plans in effect, and at least in Walmart's case, which is the only one that's actually happened, it looks like the transition is going very smoothly and has been planned out for many years.
These were kind of outliers across corporate America, though, because the average CEO tenure across the S&P 500 is now just over 7 years, which is well below the 10 years that these guys reigned over their companies for. 1,650 US CEOs have left their jobs in the first 9 months of 2025. So that is on pace with 2024, and it's on pace to be the highest in decades. So we are seeing or entering a time of upheaval right now. If you want to read between the lines, I mean, they want leaders fluent in AI coming in. We have this geopolitical board game that you have to play. There looks like cost-cutting measures are going to be a big part of the new reign of CEOs as well. So it's just a fascinating time that we go through these big periods of upheaval right now, and it's symbolic that these big 3 names, these names that you're on a first-name basis with, are stepping to the side to make way for the new crop of leaders.
Yeah, let's just talk about Walmart for a second, because it has been a remarkably stable company in terms of a executive management perspective. The new guy coming in to replace McMillon, let me find his name, it's Ferner. He is only the 5th CEO since the founder of Walmart, Sam Waltman. McMillon's been there since 2014, has done a remarkable job of growing Walmart's business from, we talked about this a few weeks ago, actually, where when McMillon came in 2014, Walmart thought it was too big to even grow any further, and then he raised wages for employees, he spruced up the stores, and then the big push into e-commerce, which hit $100 billion in revenue in 2024. It's growing at 20% a year, and now the next CEO is going to have to figure out how AI factors into the picture. Walmart has already done a partnership with OpenAI and ChatGPT to get, shopping integration in there. So that's the big question, is where do they make money besides e-commerce and their physical stores? They've done a lot. They've done a big push into advertising and other sources of revenue. So we'll see how the new guy does at Walmart.
You got to think McMillon is like, this was time for me to step aside, because what do you mean I got to loop in AI to Walmart? Like, what are you even talking about? So I do think, it's the end of one era and they're now entering the next.
And I was shocked about the news about Tim Cook too. I never thought about his tenure, but he has been the first Apple CEO since Steve Jobs in 2011. He's been there forever. It feels like a little bit less time.
I mean, a lot of people make fun of him for the lack of, innovation and how each iPhone seems to just be marginally improved on the other. But if you just look at the amount of revenue he's brought in, how he's made services just this massive division within Apple, and the fact that the Apple is a massive company, over $4 trillion now. So he has done well, even though he's not as visionary or sexy of a CEO as Steve Jobs was.
Yeah, Apple, when he came in, Apple's market cap in 2011 was $350 billion. It's now at $4 trillion today. So he's done a few things right. It's Monday, so here's your preview of the big events in the week ahead. YouTube TV subscribers firing up their tellies tonight. We'll see an old friend who hasn't been around lately. Monday Night Football. That's because Disney and YouTube TV owner Google resolved their unusually tense contract standoff after 15 long days that left channels like ESPN, ABC, and more in the dark for 10 million YouTube TV subscribers. As a result of the deal, all Disney-owned channels have returned immediately, and both companies are hailing a fair agreement.
Yeah, I mean, carriage disputes have become nastier and more public than ever before. I mean, I would assume a lot of you listening never even considered what a carriage dispute was, but now with these streaming apps having more power to weaponize users' outrage in real time, and the fact that these are such high-profile events that are going dark, now we are seeing these happen again and again. So big win for sports fans, though, because it was really annoying that it went blackout like right in the middle of college season, right in the middle of NFL season. So now your football is back, people.
Yeah, too bad it's not a great matchup, though. Cowboys, Raiders, the Eagles are already running away with the NFC East. Okay, over on Wall Street, the week's earnings slate is all about NVIDIA and retailers. The most valuable company in the world reports its quarterly financials at a time when investors have begun biting their nails over the cost of the AI build-out, which NVIDIA sits in the center of. But don't forget about the retailers, who may be a more important litmus test for the economy. Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Gap will give us the lowdown on the American consumer, the engine of the U.S. economic machine. As one analyst put it, at the end of the day, it really does have more to do with how many yoga pants and cheeseburgers a consumer wants to buy.
Yeah, I mean, Home Depot, Target, Walmart, NVIDIA, 2x4s, Christmas gifts, AI chips. We are getting a whole swath of the economy this week. Also, we're getting the September jobs report, which has obviously been massively delayed on a Thursday. Those figures are probably going to be too stale to actually use. We have seen numbers from private surveys probably fill in the gaps better for the labor market. So it actually is probably more illuminating to look at these company earnings reports than the government data that has been so far behind schedule.
And finally, your theater kid friends, including myself, have been waiting for this all year. Wicked for Good, the second chapter to the hit musical adaptation, hits theaters on Friday. And people seem to be pretty excited to return to Oz with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Fandango says that Wicked for Good sold the most pre-sale tickets for a PG movie in history, and it's the biggest advanced ticket seller of 2025. Maybe Witches Who Can Belt is just what the box office needed.
Yeah, you don't need movie stars. You just need, obviously, an awesome and epic story. I also feel like there's been an insane product push to go along with this movie. I mean, I've seen eyeshadow palettes, toothbrushes, donut holes from Dunkin', all in that signature pink and green. This franchise lends itself so well to brandable products because you literally can just make normal things one pink and one green, and suddenly it's Wicked Brandon. And I will say I did end up ordering, the Munchkins from Dunkin' Donuts because, I don't know, it looks pretty good to me. But yes, it is a massive marketing and product push. I feel like in a post-Barbie world, we are seeing these movies become events these days, and Wicked is just a prime example of that.
All right, that is all the time we have. Thanks so much for starting your morning with us, and have a wonderful start to the week. For any feedback on the show, send a note to morningbrew@morningbrew.com or slide into our DMs on Instagram @MBDailyShow. Let's roll the credits. Emily Milliron is our executive producer. Raymond Lute is our producer. Our associate producers are Olivia Graham and Olivia Lake. Hair and makeup hasn't been to the movies, or work for that matter, in ages. Devin Emery is our president, and our show is a production of Morning Brew.
Great show today, Neal. Let's run it back tomorrow.